And when football gets rolling next week with the Texans and the Chiefs on Thursday night, let's focus on some of the teams that you've pegged as contenders, Rodney. And let's start with the AFC. Who do you like coming out of that conference, or at least emerging as the teams to watch?
Well, my top three, Mike, would be obviously number one is Kansas City. You got a bunch of returning starters, obviously Patrick Mahomes. I like the Ravens. I just think that upgraded on the defensive line, I think that's going to help stop the run. And I love the Tennessee Titans with Mike Vrabel, the coaching, and just their improvement. I'm going to tell you, though, my sneaky team is definitely the Pittsburgh Steelers. I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and, that awesome defense. I think that's a Super Bowl winning defense. You get Ben Roethlisberger back. That helps the defense. It helps the offense. And those are my top three teams, with Pittsburgh being sneaky in the AFC, Mike.
Well, how about where's your New England Patriots? Like, just give me your, what's your feel there? Because I'm excited about New England. I understand there's some change, different pieces there. But, like, give me your, crystal ball. How do you think this kind of shakes out for the Patriots and Cam Newton?
Well, the reason why you say that and I say that, and we're fans of the New England Patriots, is even with Tom Brady gone, we know they have Coach Belichick. But to me, you look at Mohamed Sanu and him being cut and released, you look and say, what other veteran receiver that they have on the roster other than Julian Edelman? And I actually feel sorry for Julian Edelman because he's going to see a lot more double teams. His life is going to be a lot more difficult not having those receivers. So it's up to Bill Belichick. He saved $6.5 million on the cap. You got to go out there and get some playmakers, guys that can stretch the field, some veteran experience to help out these young guys.
And, Rodney, when you mentioned the Ravens and the Chiefs as two of the contenders in the AFC, yeah, obviously those are the teams at the top. The Titans are the ones that got my attention because I feel like a lot of people are overlooking the Titans. And maybe that's just what the Titans are destined to be. Maybe they could win the Super Bowl and still be overlooked. But and maybe this plays into their hands. The idea that you're one of the very few that would put them in that upper echelon of the AFC. What do you see about them building on what they did last year, repeating what they did last year to get to the Final Four, to get to Kansas City for the AFC Championship game, and maybe this year they can get past it?
Mike, I look at the top, man, and I look at Mike Vrabel. I played with Mike Vrabel for a long time. I know what he stands for. I know how his players respect him, and I know what type of players he has. He has a lot of unselfish guys that run through the brick wall for one another, and guys that are cohesive. They can run the football. They have a really good, solid defense. They don't make a lot of mistakes on the defensive side of the ball. And I think Ryan Tannehill is a very, very good quarterback. I think he can do a lot of things. He can pass the ball down the field. He can run. He can scramble. And he brings that emotion and that energy. So I like the Tennessee Titans. They may not be a fancy team where people are looking at and they have all these big-name guys, but they have a lot of talent. Jonnu Smith, they can run the football. I like the Titans, man. Don't sleep on them.
Well, why we're just there, because you're on the Titans, like the AFC South is going to be interesting. I mean, we know Deshaun Watson's there, Jacksonville, okay, they're a rebuild or whatever you want to call it there. I just like to, real quick, what do you see for the Indianapolis Colts? I'm a guy that I look at them and go, they'd be one of my watch out for them this year type of teams. What's your feeling on them, Rodney?
Hey, Chris, that's a good point, because Indianapolis, when I was talking to our producer, Matt Casey, that was one of the teams that I was actually going to put down, was the Indianapolis Colts, because they have stability at that offensive line, something to protect Phillip Rivers. I like their wide receiving core and what they've done in the draft, getting a young running back and getting a wide receiver. I like what they're doing down in Indianapolis. I think Phillip Rivers gives them the stability that they're looking for, the experience, especially behind the experienced offensive line.
All right, Rodney, you've given us plenty to think about on the AFC side. Who are your contenders on the NFC side?
Well, number one would have to be Chris' best friend, San Francisco 49ers. I like the San Francisco 49ers. I like Seattle in the same division. And surprisingly, I took the Saints off and I put the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on there. For just whatever reason, I like Tampa Bay with all the experienced guys they have. They're loaded. And really, my sneaky team would be the Arizona Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray is going to be a superstar. I love Kenyon Drake. We talk so much about DeAndre Hopkins, but Kenyon Drake is a guy that can break open in the open field, and I think he's highly underrated as a running back. And
yeah, Rodney, Rodney, that Cardinals team is one that Chris and I have been pegging for months now. That we can sense it coming, and we saw Patrick Mahomes in year 2 become the MVP. Lamar Jackson in year 2 become the MVP. I think Kyler Murray is going to make a run at it this year. He's going to be that guy that's going to shock a lot of people because because most people didn't see him last year, but we all saw enough of him to say this guy's special.
Mike, and that's the disadvantage of playing on the West Coast. I played there with the San Diego Chargers for 9 years, and unfortunately, that's how you get bypassed from defensive player of the year and Pro Bowls and stuff like that when you're all the way on the West Coast, because a lot of people, especially if you're losing, people don't pay attention to you. But I think with Kyler Murray, I think that's going to change. He is a superstar. He's unselfish. They're starting to put some weapons around him, and I can't wait to see what he does this year.
I mean, I agree with all the Kyler Murray stuff. I don't know if I could get behind the sleeper in the NFC quite yet, all right? I'll just say that. I got to see their defense play at a little bit of a higher level, those type of things.
Who would you replace it with, Chris? Who would you replace it with?
Well, oh, you mean just as far as sleepers are concerned?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. If sleepers are concerned, if we're talking about any team that didn't make the playoffs last year, damn, I probably would like the Rams or the Cowboys more than them, okay? Just as far as complete football teams. I understand the Kyler Murray love affair, so that would be my teams. But wait, I have one more thing for you because I would be interested to hear this. I mean, we're all in agreement. We think the 49ers are a really damn good football team. Talk to us a little bit about what is it like to come out of a year losing the Super Bowl? And what does it do to your psyche early on in the year, or how does the next season shape up in a player's mind when you're coming off like a devastating loss like they did?
Yeah, I think obviously it depends on what type of makeup you have in the locker room. But for the most part, guys are looking and saying, look, guys, we reached the Super Bowl. We made this mistake, that mistake. These are things that we can improve on and get better at. And I think this is a confident team. They know they have the great defense. They know they can run the ball. You talk about Kyle Shanahan's creativity with play calling, all these different things. So this is something that you get excited about. You're like, man, you know what? We lost the Super Bowl, but we can definitely get back. We know the improvements that we have to make. We got rid of some guys. We added some new guys, and it's about chemistry. So I think San Francisco, they're primed and ready, understanding their opportunity this year, Chris.
We talk all the time about teams that had a great season that ended in disappointment. We talked earlier this week about the Ravens going 14-2, and then you start into a new season and you keep thinking about last year. Maybe if this year it doesn't go as easily. How did Bill Belichick manage to get you guys each and every year to just forget about last year, whether it's a Super Bowl, whether it's losing in the Super Bowl, whether it's losing in the playoffs? What does he do? What magic wand does he wave to get the locker room to forget completely about last year and focus on this year?
I think it's perspective, Mike. I think, he provides us with perspective, and he says, what you did last year, it's a completely different team than what you're dealing with right now at this point. So don't worry about what happened last year, one game at a time. And I think it comes down from the coach. It trickles down to the veteran players, and it's the same approach. Like if the veteran players approach it where it's just, okay, that was last year. We're not thinking about it. He doesn't bring up what happened last year or anything like that. He completely forgets about it and he moves forward. And I think once the veterans take that and it trickles down to the younger players, then that's when it spreads throughout your locker room.
Okay. One of the teams you talked about with your NFC contenders there, Seattle, right? Seattle, there's all this talk, Rodney, of like, can we put the ball in Russell Wilson's hands more? I don't know. Do you think they did enough on the defensive side of the ball to like legitimately put themselves in that Super Bowl conversation? And listen, I'm with you. I just know these are the questions I get sometimes too. I'm a believer in Seattle as well. But anything about their team that jumps out to you or you'd like to see changed about them in any way?
Chris, Seattle is just a funny team because you just can't. It's a lot of times you can't feel them because like defensively, sometimes they're really good on offense, and a lot of and then they might be average on defense, and then you see the potential with some individual players on the defensive side of the ball. I just look at the stability of Russell Wilson. I look at that run game. I look at that big physical offensive line, and I think the Seattle Seahawks are that team that's ready to take that next step. I just think they're ready to take that next step.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.